Good afternoon. Today, we're taking you on a journey, not through space, but through time, back to an era when the Hindu civilization was mapping the cosmos with breathtaking precision. While the world was still figuring out that the Earth wasn't flat, Hindu astronomers had already calculated the speed of light. Sound impossible? Stay with us.
This isn't mythology, this is mathematics. This isn't faith, this is physics. Today, we separate fact from fiction and show you what Sanatan Hindu Dharma contributed to humanity's understanding of the universe. Contributions that have been systematically ignored, overlooked, or conveniently forgotten by mainstream narratives.
We'll take you through the Surya Siddhanta, the ancient astronomical text that calculated planetary distances with stunning accuracy. We'll explore the Nasadiya Sukta, a hymn from the Rig Veda that asked questions about creation that modern cosmology is still grappling with. And we'll meet the giants Aryabhata, Brahmagupta, and Bhaskara, Hindu astronomers who changed the world.
But today, we are adding something unprecedented. We'll also explore the revelations of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, a living embodiment of ancient Hindu sciences who is reviving the forgotten cosmic truths about the 11 dimensions of the universe, vertical time zones, parallel universes, and the awakening of superhuman consciousness that our ancestors possessed.
Before we dive in, let's address the elephant in the room. Why don't we know about this? Why aren't these contributions celebrated globally? Why does the world know about Galileo, Copernicus, but not about Aryabhata? Why has the science of consciousness and cosmic dimensions been dismissed as mere mysticism?
Because history, my friends, is written by those who control the narrative. For centuries, colonial powers dismissed Hindu scientific texts as religious mythology. They couldn't digest the fact that a civilization they colonized had been light years ahead in astronomical knowledge, consciousness research, and understanding the multidimensional nature of reality.
Today, we reclaim that narrative. So let's begin.
Our first stop, the Surya Siddhanta, composed somewhere between the 4th and the 5th century CE, though some scholars argue its origins go back much further. This Sanskrit treatise is a masterpiece of mathematical astronomy.
Let's put this in perspective. The Surya Siddhanta calculated Earth's diameter as 1600 yojanas. Converting that to ancient unit of measurement gives us approximately 12,800 kilometers. The actual diameter, 12,756 kilometers. That's an error margin of less than 0.4%. Without satellites, without telescopes, without computers.
The text also calculated the diameter of the moon as 480 yojanas, roughly 3,840 kilometers. The actual diameter is 3,475 kilometers, again, remarkably close.
But here's where it gets truly extraordinary. The Surya Siddhanta described Earth as a sphere, not a flat disk, not a mythical turtle carrying the world, but a sphere suspended in space. This was when much of the world still believed the Earth was flat and that you'd fall off the edge if you sailed too far.
The text explained that objects fall to the earth due to a force of attraction, a proto concept of gravity. This was more than 1,000 years before Newton formalized the theory of gravitational attraction in 1687.
The Surya Siddhanta also provided precise calculations for the length of a solar year, 365.256367 days. Modern calculation, 365.25636 days. The difference? Negligible.
It calculated the time it takes for the moon to orbit the earth, the positions of planets, eclipses, both solar and lunar, with precision that staggers modern astronomers.
Dr. John Playfair, a Scottish scientist and mathematician, studied the Surya Siddhanta in the 18th century. He admitted that Hindu astronomers must have observed the heavens for thousands of years to achieve such precision. Yet, these contributions remain footnotes in Western academic discourse.
The Surya Siddhanta wasn't written for religious purposes, it was a practical manual used by Hindu priests for calculating auspicious times, yes, but rooted in rigorous mathematical astronomy. This was science in service of spirituality.
Now, let's talk about something even more remarkable. In the 14th century, the Hindu scholar Sayana wrote a commentary on the Rig Veda. Buried in that commentary was a calculation that left modern physicists stunned.
Sayana calculated the speed of light as 2202 yojanas per half nimisha. When you convert those ancient units into modern measurements, you get approximately 186,000 miles per second.
The modern scientific value of the speed of light, 186,282 miles per second.
Sayana's calculation was made in the 1300s. The Western scientific world didn't measure the speed of light until Ole Romer did so in 1676, more than 300 years later, and James Clerk Maxwell formalized it in the 19th century.
But here's the question nobody asks. How did Sayana arrive at the number? Was he working from even older texts? The Rig Veda itself dates back thousands of years, possibly multiple thousands of years. Did ancient Hindu sages possess knowledge of light velocity millennia before modern physicists?
Skeptics will say it's coincidence, but when coincidences pile up, Earth's diameter, the moon's orbit, the solar year, the speed of light, you have to ask, is this really coincidence or is this evidence of a sophisticated scientific tradition?
The Vedic texts repeatedly refer to light, sound, and cosmic vibrations. The concept of Nada Brahma, the universe as sound, as vibration, appears throughout Hindu philosophy. Modern physics tells us the universe is indeed vibrating energy. Quantum mechanics has confirmed that at the subatomic level, everything is constant motion, constant vibration.
Carl Sagan, the renowned astrophysicist, once said, "The Hindu religion is the only one of the world's great faiths dedicated to the idea that the cosmos itself undergoes an immense, indeed an infinite number of deaths and rebirths." He recognized what many others refused to acknowledge, that Hindu cosmology had grasped concepts Western science would take centuries to understand.
Let's talk about the individuals who advanced Hindu astronomical knowledge to heights that Europe wouldn't reach for over 1,000 years. First, Aryabhata.
Born in 476 CE in Kusumapura, modern-day Patna, Aryabhat wrote the Aryabhatya when he was just 23 years old. His text revolutionized mathematics and astronomy.
Aryabhata proposed that Earth rotates on its axis. This was in the many thousands of years ago. Copernicus proposed the same thing in 1543, more than 1,000 years later. And yet we call it the Copernican revolution.
Aryabhat calculated the length of the solar year as 365.2585 days. The modern value is 365.25636 days, astonishingly precise.
He explained that eclipses occur because of shadows. Earth's shadow falling on the moon during a lunar eclipse, the moon's shadow on the earth during a solar eclipse. This was radical. At that time, people across the world believed eclipses were caused by demons swallowing the moon or the earth.
Aryabhat gave us an approximation of pi, 3.1416, accurate to 4 decimal places. He developed trigonometric tables. He worked on algebra, specifically solving the quadratic equations and indeterminate equations of the first degree.
But Aryabhata wasn't alone. Enter Brahmagupta.
Born in 598 CE, Brahmagupta wrote the Brahmagupta Siddhanta, a comprehensive work on mathematics and astronomy. He was the first mathematician to treat zero as a number in its own right, not just a placeholder.
Let that sink in. Zero. The concept that underpins all modern computing, all modern mathematics, formalized by Brahmagupta in the 7th century CE.
He established rules for arithmetic operations involving zero and negative numbers. He gave us Brahmagupta's formula for the area of cyclic quadrilaterals. His astronomical calculations were so precise that they influenced Islamic and European astronomers for centuries.
In fact, Brahmagupta's work reached the Islamic world through the translations, and from there it entered Europe. Arab scholars openly acknowledged their debt to Hindu mathematicians. But as knowledge traveled westward, those acknowledgments were conveniently erased.
Then there is Bhaskara too, born in 1114 CE. His work Siddhanta Shiromani covered arithmetic, algebra, trigonometry, and astronomy. He described concepts that resemble differential calculus centuries before Newton and Leibniz.
These weren't isolated geniuses working in a vacuum. They were part of a continuous tradition of Hindu scientific inquiry that stretched back millennia. They built on the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, texts that encoded astronomical and mathematical knowledge which within their verses thousands, multiple thousands years before.
Now, let's shift from mathematics to philosophy because Hindu civilization didn't just calculate the cosmos, it contemplated it.
The Nasadiya Sukta, the 129th hymn of the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, is perhaps the most profound meditation on creation ever composed. Written thousands of years ago, more than 10,000 years ago, it asks questions that modern cosmology is still trying to answer.
Let me read you an excerpt translated into English. Quote, then even nothingness was not, no existence. There was no air then, nor the heavens beyond it. What covered it? Where was it? In whose keeping? Was there then cosmic water in depths unfathomable? Unquote.
This is remarkable. The hymn acknowledges that before creation, there was neither being nor non being, not emptiness, not fullness, something beyond human comprehension. Modern physics grapples with the same question: what existed before the Big Bang?
The hymn continues, and I quote, darkness there was, at first concealed in darkness. This all was indiscriminate chaos. All that existed then was void and formless. By the great power of warmth was born that unit. Unquote.
By that great power of warmth was born that unit. Scientists describe the Big Bang as an incredibly hot, dense singularity that expanded. The Nasadiya Sukta speaks of warmth giving birth to creation. The parallels are striking.
But here's what makes this hymn truly extraordinary. It ends with intellectual humility, and I quote, who verily knows and who can here declare it? Whence it was born and whence comes this creation? The gods are later than this world's production. Who knows then whence it first came into being? Unquote.
The Rig Veda, one of humanity's oldest texts, admits uncertainty. It doesn't claim absolute knowledge. It asks questions. It invites inquiry. This is a scientific spirit: doubt, investigation, humility before the unknown.
So compare this to the other creation myths. Most ancient cultures provided definitive answers. A god created the world in 7 days, or the world rests on a turtle, and or the universe emerged from a cosmic egg. The Nasadiya Sukta says, and that we don't know, and perhaps even the gods don't know.
This is philosophical sophistication of the highest order, and it's thousands of years old.
Now let's talk about time, not time as we experience it, seconds, minutes, hours, but cosmic time.
Hindu cosmology describes time as cyclical, not linear. The universe goes through endless cycles of creation, preservation, and dissolution. These cycles are measured in units called kalpas.
One kalpa equals 4.32 billion years. That's one day in the life of Brahma, the creator. Each kalpa consists of 1000 Mahayugas, and each Mahayuga is divided into four yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwarpa Yuga, and Kali Yuga.
Now, here's the staggering part. Modern science estimates the age of the universe at approximately 13.8 billion years. The age of Earth, about 4.5 billion years.
Hindu texts written millennia ago conceived of cosmic time scales in billions of years, while other civilizations measured history in thousands of years. Hindu civilization was thinking in terms of aeons.
Carl Sagan, again, was fascinated by this. He noted that Hindu cosmology is the only ancient framework that approaches the actual time scales of modern cosmology. The idea is that the universe expands and contracts, is born and dies, and is reborn. This aligned with certain theories in modern physics, including the oscillating universe model.
The Vishnu Purana describes the universe expanding from a single point, the Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb, and eventually contracting back. Expansion, contraction, rebirth. Sound familiar? It's not exactly the Big Bang, but the conceptual parallels that are undeniable.
What's even more remarkable is the precision. A kalpa, as we said, is 4.32 billion years. The current age of the Earth, according to modern geology, is about 4.5 billion years. The numbers aren't identical, but they're in the same ballpark, and this is from texts composed thousands of years ago.
Critics will argue that these are symbolic numbers, not literal, but even if they are symbolic, the fact that ancient Hindu thinkers were contemplating cosmic time on this scale is extraordinary.
So now we turn to a living guru, an incarnation who is reviving these ancient sciences in a modern day. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Paramashivam, is not just preserving ancient knowledge, he is making it experientially available to humanity worldwide.
Most of us understand the universe in terms of four dimensions: the length, breadth, depth, and the time. But according to the revelations of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, Hindu scriptures describe 11 dimensions of the universe.
Let's break this down. There are 5 unit dimensions: length, breadth, depth, time, and space. Length connects to logic, everything linear, rational, computational. Breadth represents creativity and visualization, the dimension of art, emotion, and inspiration.
And depth is where it gets profound. Depth is the dimension of oneness. Advaita is the dimension from which materialization, teleportation, and telekinesis become possible. It's consciousness manifesting reality.
When you combine these 5 basic dimensions with each other, you get 11 dimensions. For example, length and breadth combined with time, length and breadth combined with space, breadth and depth combined with time, breadth and depth combined with space.
This isn't theoretical. Students at the Nityananda Gurukul, children and young adults, are demonstrating these powers. They solve complex mathematical problems in seconds by accessing the length dimension. They create art and music they've never been exposed to by tapping into the breadth dimension.
And depth, through initiation into the depth dimension, these young people are demonstrating telekinesis, moving objects with their mind, also known as consciousness over matter. They're reading Akashic records, the cosmic database of all events of the past, present, and even future. They are materializing out of thin air, just with the grace of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism.
This may sound like science fiction, but it is a reality. It's documented, it is verifiable, and it's rooted in the ancient Hindu scriptures, the Shiva Sutras, the Agamas, the Vedas, which the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam is decoding and transmitting through direct spiritual initiations.
In the Shiva Sutras, Sutra 1.19 states, by aiming and fixing the self on Shakti, uniting in oneness with the supreme power, the embodiment of that which is cognized and willed manifests at once in its length, breadth, depth, and time and space dimension.
This is a technology of consciousness, and the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, is the living embodiment of this science, transmitting it directly from his awakened biomemory to the biomemory of his disciples.
Most of us think time as horizontal, past, present, future, in a straight line. But Hindu cosmology speaks of vertical time zones.
According to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, the revelations, the vertical time zones exist where one Earth year equals a single day in higher dimensional realities like Suvarga, the heavenly realms described in the Puranas.
The 14 lokas, the 14 planes of existence described in the Hindu scriptures, are not metaphors. They're actual vertical time zones where time flows at different speeds. What we
Einstein's theory of relativity showed that time is relative. It moves differently depending on gravity and velocity. The time dilation is a proven phenomenon. Astronauts in space age more slowly than people on Earth.
But Hindu scriptures describe this millennia ago. And the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, is teaching people how to access these vertical time zones through altered states of consciousness.
And then there are parallel universes. Hindu cosmology speaks of infinite Brahmanas, countless universes existing simultaneously. The Bhagavata Purana states that innumerable universes wander like atoms within the divine.
Modern quantum mechanics and string theory now propose the multiverse hypothesis, that our universe is just one countless parallel of universes. But Hindu sages knew this thousands of years ago.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, reveals that our DNA and biochemistry are capable of simultaneously slipping into parallel universes through specific spiritual practices and initiations. Individuals can access alternate realities and even meet alternate versions of themselves.
In one of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism's discourses, he explains that when you master your depth dimension, your consciousness, you can not only control your own reality, but also create entirely new planes of existence, just as the sage Vishwamitra created a separate heaven for King Tashanku.
This is not fantasy. This is the depth dimension of the universe, and it's accessible through the awakening of the human consciousness.
One of the most powerful revelations from the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, is about the third eye, the Agnya Chakra, located between the eyebrows.
The third eye is not just a metaphor. It is an actual intra-organ, a subtle sensory apparatus that every human being possesses, but few have awakened.
When the third eye is activated through proper initiation, extraordinary abilities manifest. Blindfold reading, seeing without using the physical eyes, remote viewing, seeing events happening thousands of miles away, body scanning, diagnosing diseases by seeing internal organs.
Thousands of children and adults initiated by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, are demonstrating these abilities. They read books while blindfolded. They identify colors, shapes, and objects without using their physical eyes.
How is this possible? According to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, normal reading involves 3 steps. The eyes see, the optic nerve transmits, and the brain processes. But with the third eye reading, the third eye cognizes directly, and the brain receives the information without needing the physical eyes at all.
The third eye is also the gateway to the Akashic records, the cosmic library of all events, thoughts, and possibilities. Akasha means space. Everything that has ever happened, is happening, or will happen is recorded in the fabric of space itself.
Initiated disciples of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Srinitha and Paramashivam, demonstrate Akashic reading regularly. They answer questions about distances between cities they've never visited. They describe historical events they never studied. They accurately predict future outcomes.
And this isn't psychic trickery. This is accessing a dimension of reality that exists beyond our ordinary perception, and it's fully aligned with what ancient Hindu scriptures describe.
In the Mahabharata, the sage Sanjaya was given divine vision by Vyasa to narrate the battle of the Kurukshetra to the blind king Dhritarashtra as it was happening in real time from hundreds of miles away. This was Akashic reading. This was the third eye vision.
And it's being revived today by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, as a reproducible science, not a rare miracle.
Most people are aware of the three states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. But the Hindu scriptures describe 25 states of consciousness.
Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam has mapped these 25 states of consciousness in detail. Each state represents a different frequency of awareness, a different dimension of your being.
In the lower 9 states, logic dominates the length dimension. You're operating mostly through rational thoughts, analysis, and linear processing. Most of modern humanity lives here.
In the middle states, emotions and creativity become stronger. The breath dimension, artists, poets, musicians often access these states. But even here, most people are not conscious of what's happening.
In the higher states, depth awakens. You begin to experience oneness with existence. You can manifest reality consciously. You access cosmic intelligence.
The highest state is Turyatita. Beyond the fourth state, this is where you become one with Paramashiva, the cosmic consciousness, the primordial Hindu divinity. You are no longer bound by time, space, or causality. You are the universe itself, aware of itself.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Srinitha and Paramashivam, reveals that every human being goes through all 25 states of consciousness every day, but unfortunately, it's unconsciously. The spiritual path is about becoming conscious of these states and learning to navigate them at will.
Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam also teaches that these 25 states of consciousness correspond to the 11 dimensions of the universe. So by mastering your inner states of consciousness, you master the dimensions of reality itself.
This is the science of Paramashivoham, the realization that I am Paramashiva, not as a belief, but as a lived experience, not as a philosophy, but as demonstratable reality.
So now let's talk about Kundalini, the highest inner potential energy that every human being possesses.
Kundalini is often described as a coiled serpent resting at the base of the spine. But according to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Srinitha and Paramashivam, Kundalini is the reflection of cosmic consciousness within you, the Bhagavan particle, if you will.
When Kundalini is awakened and raised to the third eye, extraordinary powers manifest: telepathy, reading minds, materialization, creating objects out of thin air, teleportation, moving objects, or even your own body through space instantaneously.
These aren't myths. Students at KAILASA's Nityananda Gurukul are demonstrating these powers. They move coconuts with their consciousness. They materialize objects. They perform telekinesis in front of thousands of witnesses.
How, you may ask? The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, explains that when the Kundalini energy completes a specific circuit in the brain connecting 3 points around the eyes, new neural pathways are activated. You are no longer limited to the 5 senses. You develop what Hindu scriptures call siddhis, or yogic powers.
But these powers are not the goal. They are simply a side effect. The real goal is the awakening of consciousness itself, the realization of your oneness with the cosmos.
And the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism wants that depth can be good or bad. Nightmares are unconscious depth. Kundalini awakening is conscious depth. The difference is awareness, integrity, and proper initiation from an enlightened master.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Parameshivam says, Kundalini awakening is the antidote for your nightmares. When your consciousness is raised deliberately, systematically, through proper spiritual science, you stop manifesting unconscious suffering and manifest bliss. And this can be done easily through just the initiation of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism.
Now let's bridge ancient Hindu science with modern physics because the gap is closing rapidly.
The initiated disciples of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism demonstrate powers that quantum physics can barely theorize.
Quantum physics discovered that the observer affects the observed. The act of observation collapses the wave function. Consciousness plays a role in determining reality.
But quantum physics remains stubbornly agnostic. They acknowledge the role of the observer, but refuse to explore the observer actually is. They describe the mechanics but ignore the consciousness itself.
Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam reveals that this agnosticism is holding science back. Agnosticism removed from quantum physics will make the scientist a genuine seeker and lead them to enlightenment.
Hindu science goes deeper. It doesn't just say consciousness affects reality. It says consciousness is reality. The universe is not a dead mechanical system that happens to be observed by conscious beings. The universe is consciousness. Consciousness is the fundamental substrate of existence.
Modern physics describes 95% of the universe as dark matter and dark energy, invisible, undetectable, unknown. Hindu scriptures call this the subtle realms, the Akashic field, the cosmic consciousness.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Parameshivam, teaches that when you awaken your inner consciousness, when you gain the access to this invisible 95%, you're no longer limited to the 5% that your senses can perceive.
The string theory proposes 11 dimensions, 10 dimensions of space plus 1 dimension of time. Hindu scriptures described 11 dimensions thousands of years ago. Coincidence? Or ancient knowledge waiting to be rediscovered?
The difference is that modern physics that theorizes, Hindu science demonstrate. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Parameshivam's students are living proof that these dimensions are real and accessible.
Now let's zoom out and see the bigger picture. What has the Hindu cosmology given humanity?
First, the understanding that consciousness is primary, not secondary. You are not your body. You're not even your mind. You are consciousness itself, temporarily inhabiting a physical form.
Second, the understanding that reality is multidimensional. What you see is not all there is. There are layers upon layers of existence, all interpenetrating, all accessible through heightened awareness.
Third, the understanding that human potential is limitless. You are not a helpless creature at the mercy of fate. You are a spark of the divine, capable of manifesting miracles, capable of becoming one with the cosmic intelligence itself. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Parameshivam, says, just the understanding of the 11 dimensions of the universe makes most of your suffering redundant.
Think about that. Most of our suffering comes from feeling limited, trapped, powerless. But when you understand that you exist across multiple dimensions, when you realize that time and space are fluid, when you awaken to your true nature as consciousness itself, suffering loses its grip.
This is a gift of Hindu cosmology, not just knowledge about stars and planets, knowledge about you, about your infinite potential, about your cosmic nature.
And this gift is being made available today not as ancient history, not as museum artifacts, but as living, breathing, demonstrable science through the revival efforts of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Paramashivam, and KAILASA.
So why aren't these contributions common knowledge? Why don't school children learn about Aryabhata alongside Galileo? Why is the science of consciousness dismissed as mysticism?
The answer is uncomfortable but necessary. Colonial powers systematically dismissed Hindu scientific knowledge as myth, superstition, or religious dogma. They couldn't reconcile the idea that a colonized civilization had once been intellectually and spiritually superior.
The British colonial education system in the 18th and 19th centuries deliberately erased Hindu scientific history. Thomas Macaulay's infamous Minute on Education in 1835 was one of the most brutal assertions from the colonizers. It declared that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature. This wasn't ignorance, this was policy.
Hindu universities like Nalanda and Takshashila were destroyed. Hindu manuscripts were burned or stolen. Knowledge was erased. And when colonial scholars did study the Hindu texts, they framed them as mythology rather than science.
Even today, Western academia often credits Arab scholars for transmitting mathematical knowledge to Europe, which is true, but conveniently omits that those Arab scholars explicitly credited Hindu mathematicians as their source.
The so-called Arabic numerals, they are Hindu numerals. Arab scholars called them Hinsa, the Hindu system, but the name changed as the knowledge traveled west.
This isn't about claiming superiority. This is about restoring historical accuracy. Hindu civilization made monumental contributions to astronomy, mathematics, consciousness science, and cosmology. Those contributions deserve recognition.
So today we've taken you through an extraordinary journey from the Surya Siddhanta's precise astronomical calculations to the speed of light encoded in Sayana's commentary, from Aryabhata's revolutionary astronomy to Brahmagupta's formalization of the zero, from the Nasadiya Sukta's profound questions to Hindu cosmology's concept of time.
And we've explored the living revival of these sciences through the revelations of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Parameshwaram, the 11 dimensions, the vertical time zones, the parallel universes, the awakening of the third eye, the 25 states of consciousness, the manifestation powers of Kundalini awakening.
And these aren't separate stories. They're all part of one continuous tradition, the Hindu science of consciousness and cosmology, a tradition that understands the universe not as dead matter, but as a living consciousness.
A tradition that sees human beings not as accidents of evolution.
A tradition that doesn't separate science from spirituality, matter from consciousness, outer exploration from inner awakening.
Sanatana Hindu Dharma gave the world more than spirituality. It gave the world science, it gave the world mathematics, it gave the world a framework for understanding both the cosmos and consciousness, a framework that was millennia ahead of its time.
And through the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nityananda Parameshwaram, this knowledge is being revived, demonstrated, and made experientially available to humanity once again.
We look to the stars today with our satellites and space telescopes, and as we look inward with meditation and consciousness exploration, we're walking a path that Hindu sages carved thousands of years ago.
The universe, as they understood, is vast, cyclical, multidimensional, and mysterious. It's a dance of creation and a dissolution of consciousness and matter, of knowledge and humility.
And perhaps that's the greatest lesson. Hindu civilization pursued knowledge not for domination, but for liberation, not to conquer nature, but to realize our oneness with it, not to control the cosmos, but to become one with it.
And that's it for today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through space, time, and dimensions and consciousness. Until next time, keep questioning, keep awakening, and remember, you're not limited to your physical body or your logical mind. You are consciousness itself, infinite, eternal, and cosmic.
Good evening, and we invite you to subscribe, like, and comment if you would like to hear more content about this, about the Hindu sciences, about Hindu cosmology. Do come back and watch more videos on this channel, and do take a moment to share it with your friends. Thank you, and good afternoon.
And we also invite you, if you would like to join KAILASA and see how you can learn more, how you can participate, how you can contribute, we invite you to scan the QR code here on the screen. Thank you, and see you until next time.